Audio Jungle.
Welcome to chapter 12, guys, and in this chapter we will be learning about databases. So till now we have used data types like integer and varchar, and just recently I told you a little bit about Boolean, right? Boolean, so that stores true and false values. Now those are basic things. Now we will be learning more about this in detail, so let's move on now. These are the data types that we will be discussing here. So first of all, we will be discussing integer data types and decimal data types. That is, those are numeric data types. And integer we can store, as you can probably tell, integers like 1 2 3, 0 1 2 3, minus 1 minus 2, so negative numbers, positive numbers, and zeros. And if we have something like 22.6, 22.0, 2 3 4, and we try to store it in integer, then what will happen is the decimal part will be truncated. What that means is if you store 22.3, it will be stored as 22 if your data type is integer. So this is also very important. Now if you can have something like a decimal in the columns, something like a decimal as a value, then if you can have decimal as a value, then it's better to set it as decimal, the data type of the column, not integer. Okay, so this is one example, and similarly we will be learning about bit data types, Boolean, as we have already used Boolean, string, that is varchar, and char, and text. So till now we have only used varchar, and we will also talk about what other types of data types can be used to store string values, that is alphanumeric and any other characters. And then we also have date and time data types that can be stored that can be used to store date and times. And what's the benefit of using data as date and time instead of just a plain old string? We will also know that, and we will learn how to save data as JSON data types. We'll talk about JSON, and then finally ENUM. So you might be confused by a few of these like bit and JSON and ENUM mainly, so let's dig into it. Okay, so first of all, numeric data types, right? Now we have already used integers, right? So when we were using integers by default, the data that was being stored was taking a size of 4 byte. Now if you are not familiar with byte means 8 bit. 1 byte is equals to 8 bit, and 1 bit is equal to, well, one bit is not equal to anything. 1 bit is the smallest unit of storage in computers. So while you were using normal int, it was of size 4 byte. Now we also have another data types like tiny int, small int, medium int, and big int. So what are those? Now whenever you use int, the size that your data is taking, the data that is stored is taking is 4 bytes. So be it 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 5, any number, 20,000, 50,000, 10,000, or 0 or 1, all that data, all that numbers is taking 4 byte of storage. So what if you only want numbers that are to be stored are either 0 or 1? What if you want numbers to be stored only from 0 to 100 or only from 0 to 1000? If that is the case, then why not use tiny int or small int or medium int? Because if you use this, then it will considerably decrease your the size that your database has. So let's say you have an integer of 4 byte, right? But you are only storing values up to 100, and instead of that, let's say if you use small int, then your database size is halved. So you can use int also, it will be no problem, but the effect will be shown in the size of the database. So if you have a 2 GB database with int data types, all integers, but instead of integer, if you had used small int, it would be of 1 GB, as you can see here. Alright, similarly, if you are storing numbers to a lot of digits, then you can use 8 byte, because this case actually happened with YouTube. Their view counter broke because they had stored in integers, and the views were too much. The views were in billions and billions, but so that could not be stored. So that's why if you can have data that is like a lot of numbers, then use big int. and similarly if you have decimal, then you use decimal instead of int. Okay, now we will talk about how much is the limit of each of these things. So as you can see here, the minimum value and maximum values of different data types. So if you are using tiny int, then the only thing that you can store is from 0 to 255. So you can store 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 or anything up to 255, right? So that means if you are using int and you are storing only 0 to 255, that is taking 2 GB. If you use tiny int instead of that, that will be divided by 4. It will not even take 1 GB. So if that is the case, then use tiny int. And similarly, as you can see here, a small int can store up to 32,000 and medium up to 83,000. Now these are unsigned. That means, these are signed. That means it can store anything from negative to positive. And if you are only storing signed data, unsigned data, that means no negative values, then that is exactly doubled, as you can see here in the table. Now I will have this data for download, so you can refer to it later whenever you need it. Okay, bit data types. You can also store data as bit. Now what is a bit data type? Bits are like the basic unit of storage. So whatever you have an image, you have a text, you have a number, you have a video, that is all stored in your computer as bits. So what you can do is, in your database also, you can choose to save just bit data. That will be like garbage to your visual your eyes. You will not be able to know what it means, but you can choose to store things as bits in the database columns itself. So you can choose to store like bit values 1001, 110, the kind of values. Okay, and when you are inserting a bit value, you need to have a b in front of the value, like this b or 0b, and then write the value. You write b and then enter single quotes and then write the value, or write 0b and then write the values after that. Okay, so then it will be saved as bits in your bit columns. And while you are getting data from bits, if you just select all from column name, then your bit value will be converted into its representative values. Like if you write 11111, it will be converted into what it means in string value. Okay, so to get the raw bit value itself, you write select bin and then column name. Okay, so this is all I'm talking about bit at the moment because it's not very widely used. And Boolean, as we have already talked about, you can also have Boolean data, and Boolean is like true or false, and by default, as we have already talked about, it uses tiny int. It uses either 1 or 2. If it is true, then the value will be 1. If it is false, then the value will be 0. Okay, so true is stored as 1 and false is stored as 0. As you can see, it is evaluated as true or false. So in your queries, you can have true or false. Select all from column where completed equals to true, where completed equals to false, but it is saved as a 0 or a 1. And now we are into string database, string data types. And as you can see, we have been using varchar the whole time, right? But we also have this char here and this text here. So if we use char, then we have fixed length, that is 0 to 255 bytes. Okay, now you cannot have more than this in char data types. Or what does it mean by fixed length is, if you have let's say we had done varchar 20, right? If we had done char 20, then it is sure to take 20 characters. So if you have done char 50, the size it will be taking in the your hard disk is of 50 characters. But in varchar, what happens is max length is subject to max row size, or what happens is its length is variable. So if you have defined varchar 50 but have only stored hello, then the size it will be occupying is of hello, so of just 5 characters. Even if you have defined its length as 50, that will be its maximum input capacity, but if you have just entered hello, it will be taking hello, it will be just taking 5 characters as size. But instead of that, if you do char 50, the size it will be occupying is of 50 characters. And in text, what happens is you don't need to specify a length. It's usually for very long databases, very long texts, like a blog post or something like that, like an article or something like that. It is stored in disk and not databases server memory. And just like normal integers, you can also choose to have tiny text, medium text, and long text. Okay. And now date and time data types. Now this is very cool, and this is what is very important, and you can choose to store dates as string, but I do not recommend it. This is the data type that we will be talking about more, because this is very useful, and this is what we use in our actual databases when you want to use date and times. Now all of these numeric data type, we talked about it in pretty detail, and it's bit, boolean, and string is, I think this much is pretty clear of we are pretty clear on how to use this, and you have to use much functions with these data types. So let's be done with it, and this is pretty interesting. Now we will be trying some examples out for this date and time data types, because there are a lot of things you can do with date and time data types, like these functions, right, and these with times. So whenever you write date function now, it is saving current time. Okay, and if you just want to get current date, you get current date like this, and there are current time functions, UTC time functions, and for date time you can have date time functions that gives you both date and time in this format. Okay, so let's go over it one by one, and we will do some examples. So the format, by default the format is like this. Okay, year, month, and date. It can range from this to this, and we have date functions like now, current date, date difference, and interval. So what it does is it now gives you current date in timestamp, not the actual date. Timestamp is like the millisecond difference from 1970 to now, and this current date gives you the current date as the name suggests, and date difference calculates difference between two dates, and this interval gives you time duration of difference between two dates. Okay, and this time is the format here. This is the format: hours, minutes, and seconds. It can range from this to this, and this is the functions that you can use to get current time. And date time, this helps you to get date and time at the same time. It also stores time zones data, as you can see here. Like by default it is UTC, but if you can define it to be something else, it will save that too. And the functions are date, time, date format, and these functions. Okay, let's do some examples of these data types. Okay, I'll have this SQL file for download, so you can always refer to this later. So first let's begin with the now method, right? So what is now? Let's see what now gives us. And hit Ctrl Enter. As you can see, now gives us the time and the date. So this gives us the current time and date. Now what if you only want date from this thing? So what you can do is select date from now, and now you have date. So what is this date method is, it takes the date from the date time that is here. Okay, now if you have a date time, it will calculate the date. Now you can also use current date, as we had seen in our presentation there to give you current date, right? So this is the same output. Now the difference with date and current date is current date calculates the date itself, and this date takes the date part from our datetime data type. Okay, now this gets the date part from our datetime data type. But what if you want to get the time? As you might have probably guessed it, you just use the time method, and then you select time from now. As you can see, this is the time now. So now we can get date using now method, and we can get date from now, we can get time from now. Now it need not be just now here, it can be something saved in the database itself. Let's say if this is saved in the database and you get this value, you get the date from this column name. Let's say if it is named right, if this is the column name now and you are getting it from a table, you can just write now here. But since this is not in our table now, this will not work. So you can include, instead of this now, you can include an actual column name here. So now we have got date and time from our date times. We can get date like this also. So let's say now you don't want date in this format, right? You want in some other format. You want month to be in front. So how can you do that? So to do that, what you do is, let's format here. You can write select date format. Remember this method, date format, and you can later download this SQL so you can try it yourself. And then you write current date, and then here is where the fun part is. Now here you write the format. So for month, write %m, and then write, we want a slash, not a dash, and then we want %d, then again slash, and then %Y to represent year. Okay, so that's how we will format, and let's give it the name. We want this to be saved as today. There you go, you get the current date in this format, right? Now don't get confused by this s, as I am used to doing as, because it's just more, it sounds correct. Select this as this. If I remove this will also work. Select this, it's kind of confuses you for, this has one column, this is another column. So I usually use s to make it sure that I'm just using an alias. Okay, so this is how you format the date. Now let's say we want to calculate difference between two dates. So how can you do that? That is also pretty simple. What you can do is just use the date diff method, right? And then let's say one date is 2015 to month is November, and date, let's day also be 11, and 2014, let's say July and 11, and hit Control Enter. And as you can get here, the difference is 488 months. Let's get it as difference, because this column name is very ugly, as you can see. And we get it here, the difference is this. Now what if we switch these dates? What do you think will happen? You get minus 488. So what MySQL does by default is the greater one needs to be in front, and it does normal a minus b. So if a minus b is negative, it shows negative. So 2014 minus 2015 is negative, so it shows a negative difference. Okay, now let's say we want to use intervals. Now how can you use intervals? Let's say you want to get the customers who have bought something in last week. So for that, what you can do is you can set the max date is today and minimum date is today minus 1 week. Okay, so how can you do that? To do that, today is you can get today like this, right? Today's date, and to get 1 week back you just minus 7 days or 1 week. So in MySQL, what you can do is you can do select, let's say today's date is, let's get it like this only. So today's date is this as today, and then you want to subtract now. I think this will not work because this is just being calculated here, but let's try it anyway. And we want to subtract from today is the interval of 7 days, right? Let's control enter. This today is unknown. Now this needs to be known first, so let's just enter today's data is 2020 04, and what is it? Today is 28th, and let's just control enter here. Now we have today, and let's call it 1 week ago. So this is today and this is 1 week ago, right? So this is how you can calculate interval. Now this intervals are not for just, it's not just for day. You can also use it for like a week, month and year. So you can have intervals for these things itself. You can calculate 7 months, you can subtract 7 years, 7 weeks, anything. Okay, it's pretty handy tool, pretty useful. Now that was the end of our datetime data type. Now as you can see here, we had done date from now, time from now. What else can you get from now? Because now contains a lot of your things, right? Now contains not just date and time, it contains a year, it contains a month, it contains date, it contains day, it contains hours, milliseconds, minutes, and everything like that, right? So what you can do is, just like this time, you can also get other things. So from time you can also get year. You can also get year from this date time. You can get month. You can get, what else can you get? You can get quarter, right? Which quarter is it? First quarter or second quarter? You can get weekday. You can get week. So this is pretty helpful. Now these are the things that we usually use whenever we are playing with our datetime data types. Now let's hit control enter. As you can see here, the time is this, year is this, month is April, quarter is, we are in second quarter, and weekday is first, because today is Monday, or what is today? I'm not sure, let me check. Today is how do you check it? Today is Tuesday, so Tuesday is 1. I'm sorry guys, this is not Monday. Now how is it 1? Because in programming it starts with, the counting starts with 0, right? So 0 is Sunday, 1 is Monday, 2 is Tuesday. So it must start with Monday. 0 is Monday, then 0 is Monday, 1 is Tuesday. So it seems it doesn't start with Sunday, it starts with Monday. So that's what happens when you cannot remember everything. So you gotta try, as I had talked in the beginning, you gotta try and no matter how experienced you are, You gotta always look for something. So 0 is Monday, 1 is Tuesday, and week. What week of the year is now? So it seems like we're in the 17th week of the year. So you might not remember all of these, but always remember that you always have some method to use with dates. Now if you have to get something with dates, then remember there must be something, and just do a quick Google search and you'll find your fitting date method. Now let's say you have something like this, right? Now what data type can you store it as? You can store it as text, because this is just a bunch of text. This is quotes, and this colon, this is, if you write it in the same line, it's like a text itself, right? Now you can also save it in varchar, you can also save it in char, right? Because what is it? It is just a collection of this curly braces, characters, columns, and this. You can save it as any one of those, right? But we have something special called JSON data type. Now what is JSON is, it's a pair of key and values. Here you can see this is the key, this is the value, this is the key, this is the value, this is the key, and this is the value. So these are key and value pairs, right? Now if you have a string that is in this format, key and value, and between this curly braces, then it is called a JSON data type. Okay, so let's open workbench. Now this is a JSON data type, and to store this you can store it as varchar, or you can choose to store it as JSON data type itself. Now as you can see here, JSON data type is available since this version 5.7.8. now you can choose to store it as varchar or char or text itself, and it is stored as a long text. The size is as long text, as I have already told you. You can, if the size is small, you can store it as varchar itself or char itself, and these data types cannot have a default. Okay, now what are enums? This is the data type that you create yourself. Let's say you have a price column, right? Now price can either be high, low, or medium, right? You have ticket prices, and ticket prices can either be high, low, or medium. So prices cannot have anything other than that. Then you can make it such that the only data that it can save is either high or low or medium. So that is the data type that you create itself. So enum is the data type that you create yourself, and so it is like value chosen from a list of formatted values. You need to define it when you're creating a table, or you can alter it later. And uses numeric, this is not users, this is uses, my bad. What numeric index means is, if you have defined this in the order of high, medium, low, then high becomes 1, medium becomes 2, low becomes 3. So that is how it denotes your values. And sorting is according to the order of value creation. Okay, I have done a lot of spelling mistakes here, so don't worry about it. According to value creation means so if we create high first, medium second, low third, that's how it will be sorted. If you want to sort by that column. So let's try an example for this. So we are in another one table here. So let's create a tickets table that will have a ticket ID, name, and price column, right? So let's say create table. Now let's put your create table knowledge to test. Let's call this tickets, right? We'll have an ID, it will be integer, ID, it will be integer, and then we'll have, let's say, price, that will be also, let's say it is an integer, and we'll have a ticket, what do we want to call it, price range or something? What is it called? Price group. Let's call it price group. Now this price group needs to be enum, right? It can either be low, medium, or high. So let's say it's low, medium, or high, right? Are we done here? Okay, so it can be one of these three things, and let's create it, and the table is created. If we refresh it here and then go to insert, as you can see it is here. Now other tables, as you can see, you cannot click here to insert because there is no primary key, so it does not know how to insert, right? Because we also always insert according to a primary key, and we don't have an index here, so that's why it is not insertable. But we can always insert it using some other means, like our insert query. So let's say I want to insert ID is 1, price is 12, and price group is, let's say, low, right? Now that is a very wrong query. We want to insert into, what is the table name? It's tickets. Hit Control Enter, and now let's select all again. As you can see, we have price 112 and low. Now if we want to insert something other than high, low and medium, like very low, what happens is data truncated for column price group at row 1, so it is not inserted because this is not one of our data types. So you are very powerful now. You even can define your own data type. Alright, so whenever you do enum, that is what happens. Now let's insert high here, and let's check it out, and let's order by price group, right? And if we hit control here, as you can see, low is first, high second, because we had created low first. Okay, now you can do order by price group descending. In that case, high will be first. Okay, so this is enum data type. So this is how you create your enum data types. You do it yourself. I mean, the data types that you define yourself while creating the table. Okay, like this. And low is first. Whenever you're sorting, low comes first, medium comes second, high comes third. That's how it is sorted.